Best game engines for indie developers. When you're an indie game developer, you might have little funding, you need to spend wisely, or no funding at all. You might also be a very small team or just one person that needs to wear many hats to get the job done. For this reason, you might want to get a reliable engine that is low cost or makes certain aspects of game development that you can do as a small team or as one person much easier. Luckily for us, in this day and age, there are engines that can do that for us. And in this video, we compiled a list of the most prominent ones we could find. Unity.
So I discovered Unity about 13 years ago. I wanted to go from 2D visualization to 3D. I chose Unity because it had an enterprise language in C#. It had excellent coverage of all the different platforms, particularly mobile and VR. And then the asset store, as somebody who was new to 3D, it was a perfect place to learn. So I actually ended up buying a lot of stuff off the asset store to learn my craft in 3D.
Unity is arguably the most used and loved engine of indie game developers due to its many perks and features. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here, and let's start from the beginning. Unity is a game engine used to make both 2D and 3D games, so immediately you have both options available. It works on Mac, Windows, and Linux systems and can deploy games on a plethora of supported systems such as PlayStation, macOS, and Android, and many, many more. So you also have all options available in that department as well. Another great thing about Unity is the fact that it's free to use up until your revenues exceed $100K US. Then you will have to upgrade your license to Unity Pro, which offers different offers for you to choose from. All in all, Unity is free, fully equipped to deal with both 2D and 3D games, and can work on the most popular operating systems and deploy games on most platforms. The engine also has a great community based around it, and so naturally you can find a lot of educational material to start your journey if you happen to be just starting out. All of this makes Unity one of the best game engines to start developing your games on. So have a go at it. Godot engine. Godot engine is a free as well as an open source video game engine. It runs on Windows, Linux, macOS, and BSD. It can deploy games on desktop, web platforms, and Android. Godot supports a number of scripting languages. Most prominent are C++ and C#. Godot has a dedicated 2D engine, but of course can also help you develop 3D games. Some of the engine's other features include, but are not limited to, hundreds of built-in nodes, flexible scene system, full principled BSDF, a visual editor, and easy-to-use shader language, a tile map editor, and the ability to easily create custom tools. And all of this is just the tip of the iceberg. With a feature-rich, free, and easy-to-use software such as Godot, you're in luck as an indie game developer, so we highly recommend you check it out. Unreal Engine. Developed by the creators of Fortnite, Unreal Engine is one of the best video game engines of all time. The engine helped make countless iconic video games: Deus Ex, BioShock, Mass Effect, you name it, Unreal probably made it. Let's start from the beginning. Unreal Engine is a free video game engine. It is free to download and comes ready to use. The games made using the engine can be subject to a 5% royalty if the lifetime gross revenue from that game exceeds $1 million US. While Unreal Engine can be used to produce 2D games, it seems to be focused on 3D games, so keep this in mind if your game is 2D. MonoGame. If you're a fan of the fun and sweet Stardew Valley or the intriguing and mysterious Celeste, and you want to create a similar experience, then you're in luck, because MonoGame helped make these games. MonoGame is a framework for game development. Wait a second, we said framework and not an engine? Why? And what's the difference? Well, the MonoGame website puts it beautifully and simply. Quote, MonoGame is a bring-your-own-tools kind of framework, which means that it provides the building blocks to build your own engine and tools, but it isn't quite an engine itself. If you are expecting a scene editor like Unity or Unreal, MonoGame is not that. If you love coding and understanding how things work under the hood, MonoGame might be what you're looking for. End quote. The framework is free as well as being open source. It uses the C# programming language and can deploy to a plethora of platforms, some of which are iOS, Android, macOS, Nintendo Switch, and Windows. That's quite the variety, isn't it? Anyways, the engine can make both 2D and 3D games. It has sound effects and music playback. Keyboard, mouse, touch, and controller inputs are also available in the framework, and it has content building and optimization as well as a math library optimized for games. If any of this sounds intriguing, make sure to check MonoGame out. Solar 2D. Formerly known as Corona, Solar 2D is a free and open source cross-platform development kit. For the latest events, the name change was a smart move, don't you think? Anyways, as the name suggests, this development kit allows you to develop 2D games and deploy them on a number of platforms such as Windows, iOS, Android, and macOS, to name a few. We mentioned earlier that this Lua-based engine is quote-unquote cross-platform. What does that mean? Simply put, you can develop a game to be deployed on a number of platforms, but only use one source code. Awesome. Now, what did we mean by Lua? Lua is an open source scripting language made to be lightweight, easy to use, but also powerful. Now, let's briefly touch on some of the software's features. The engine has an instant update simulator, plugins for all your needs, the ability to call any native library, and of course, it is completely free. GameSalad. Indie game development can mean a lot of things. It can mean a team of game developers with no funding from any publisher, or it can simply mean a gamer who wants to make a game, but they know very little about game development. Luckily, we live in a day and age where there is software that accommodates that. GameSalad is an easy-to-use game design tool that helps you create 2D games without needing any kind of coding whatsoever. Let it be known that GameSalad is not free. Its price ranges from $8 to $25 a month, depending on the tier you are subscribed to. Some of the engine's features are that it is a drag and drop coding platform. You're essentially coding by dragging and dropping. You can add social and monetization features, and you have a readily available free-to-play model, and so many other features. CryEngine. If you're a fan of Far Cry, listen up. CryEngine was the engine the very first Far Cry was developed on. CryEngine is a free game development engine with royalties of 5% applied upon shipping your product. The engine's area of specialty seems to be 3D and, to be more specific, realistic shooters. While CryEngine can do 2D, the complexity of the engine might not make learning it worth it, only to end up developing a 2D game. Try a simpler engine for that. No engine can do every genre of games perfectly, and CryEngine is no exception, so we recommend you think about the game you want to make, have a look at the games developed in CryEngine, and see whether your game is similar and go from there. Now let's take a look at some of the engine's features. CryEngine has real-time local reflections, realistic vegetation, material editor, substance integration, physicalized character customization, audio abstraction, and many, many more. Give CryEngine a try if any of this sounds good to you. Open3D Engine. Previously known as Amazon Lumberyard, Open3D Engine is a free, open source, and a cross-platform game engine. As the name suggests, the game engine is a 3D engine, so no 2D here. This engine is the updated version of Amazon Lumberyard, which itself was based on CryEngine, the engine we talked about just before this one. Some of the engine's features include data-driven character animation system, a real-time physics engine, high-performance networking layer, and a multi-threaded and extensible photorealistic renderer. The engine can be installed on both Windows and Linux and can deploy games on a number of platforms such as Windows, macOS, Linux, Android, and iOS. Alright, that is it for our video today. As usual, we hope you find it helpful and enjoyable. Make sure to let us know what you thought in the comments. With that said, see you around!